Now then, my favourite way of catching bass is surface fishing in shallow water, using surface lures like the ones I've got here. It's the ultimate thrill, it really is. You chuck a lure out and you're working it back, you can see the lure working across the surface, and then you see the bow wave of the bass come up behind it, chase it and hit it. Sometimes you don't even see the bow wave, you can be working a lure and they come up like submarines, right underneath them, smash, woof, off they go. It's absolutely amazing, heart-stopping stuff. Brilliant, brilliant fun. And of course there's loads and loads of lures out there, loads of subsurface lures, and there's loads of surface lures. I'm just going to run you through my top 5. This is my go-to box. You can see there's loads of stuff in here. Some of these are subsurface. The ones on the left here are all surface lures, and I've caught loads of bass on all of them. Okay, so my first one, my go-to lure, if I'm going to try a cast in a spot I've never fished before, has got to be a Lucky Craft Sammy. It's an absolutely fantastic lure. Loads of rattles in there. It makes a hell of a noise. Loads of surface disturbance. And this lure, when you work it correctly, it snakes across the surface. Very, very appealing to bass. So the Lucky Craft Sammy, that's my first choice. Second choice, it's got to be the Heddon Spook. Now, this lure has been around for, well, I think best part of a century. Absolutely superb lures. I think they're the oldest lure manufacturing company in the world, and for a good reason. I mean, to look at it, it doesn't look like much. It just looks like a pencil bait, like a stick bait. But the action on this, I've got some live action which I'll cut to in a minute. You can see this as it snakes across the surface, and you can understand why the bass love it. Again, ball bearings in there. It casts like a bullet. That's one of the reasons I love this lure, because you can chuck this lure 50, 60 yards, no problem. Brilliant, brilliant lure, the Heddon Spook. Okay, a lot of people's favourites, and yes, I've caught lots of bass on them, but it's going to be my third choice if I'm not getting anything on the other two, as Patchinko. The design on these, as I hold this by the head here, there's ball bearing trapped in the back end there. Again, these lures are designed for casting a long distance, but for also being able to work on the surface. If you work these correctly, they sort of dip just subsurface and pop back up again. Loads of disturbance, loads of rattling. Yeah, Patchinko, really good lures, and it comes in different sizes, different weights. Superb. Now, when I'm fishing surface lures like these, which is it's called walking the dog basically. It's a wrist action as you're winding, which helps the lure snake on the surface like this. Quite often in recent years when I've been fishing with these lures, as the sun starts to come up, the bass tend to go off the boil a little bit, and there's one lure in my box which has always consistently caught me bass when all of these surface lures have stopped working, and that's the Maria Pop Queen. And this is a true surface popper in all respects. It's got the concave nose there, so as you chug that across the surface, it creates loads of water displacement and throws water out in front and behind it, air bubbles, all sorts of stuff. And like I say, that particular lure, when the sun comes up and the bass tend to go down a bit and they're not really interested in feeding off the surface, that always, without fail, pulls me an extra fish or two. So the Maria Pop Queen, if you can get them in that colour, the sort of greeny chartreuse colour, that's the one to go for. It really has done the business for me. And in recent years, sort of the last 3 or 4 years, I've been using these, the Savage Gear Surface Prey. It's an absolutely brilliant lure. It's like a little stick bait. There's not a massive amount to it. There's a little rattle in there. They come in various sizes. These aren't technically surface lures, but if you work them right, you can keep them on the surface. They do go just below the surface, subsurface. But I've caught loads of bass on these. When the bass are up feeding on whitebait, brit, small fish off the surface, you know, when you see the water bubbling and boiling, and you're chucking these Patchinkos and Sammys and whatnot at them, and they're not interested at all, this is what I go to in this size. Quite small, but it imitates those small whitebait, small bait fish. Just going to show you how I fish a surface lure. This is a Sammy. It's well renowned for catching big bass. Quite a few bass on that over the years, and I've had about 25 schoolies on it today. What I do is cast it in, and you'll hear a big splash like that. Then I like to give it one twitch just to get it moving, and it's just a case of a steady retrieve, just flicking the rod tip. You can see that thing dancing on the surface there, bubbling away, creating a bit of disturbance, and that's basically what the bass home in on. The other thing to remember as well when you're surface fishing like this is if you have a fish follow and it hits your lure 3, 4, 5 times, it doesn't get hooked, just stop your retrieve, pause for 1 second, 2 seconds, and then start again. And 9 times out of 10 they'll come back and have a go at it. But it's all too easy. You get caught up in the moment and you see a fish following it, it hits it and hits it, and you want to wind faster and strike, and it's the wrong thing to do. It's against your human nature to do that, your human instinct. But if you can stop, condition yourself to stop, you will catch a hell of a lot more fish. It's a lively one, this one.
He went side on at it, didn't he? First?
Yeah, he just came up from underneath it and nailed it. Yeah. Not a bad fish, this, mate. Nice. It's a good fish.
Yeah. That was one of the ones I think we just seen then.
I don't think he wants to come.
He doesn't want to play yet, but he certainly wanted that Sammy, I tell you. Oh yes.
That's a nice fish.
That is a nice fish.
Yeah. Get a couple of stills of that in a minute.
Hey. That's what we like, isn't it?
That's what we like. Yeah.
Woo!
Someone going along there, Dave?
Yeah. Taking you for a ride, mate.
I've only got a 12-pound leader on it. Are you going to boga him?
Yeah. If his mouth's wide open because the lure's in it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just take it easy, like. I won't hold the leader too much, like.
Yeah.
Beauty.
Cracker, mate, that is.
That's what we wanted.
Huh?
That's what we came here for. Fishing with Matt.
Well done.
So when it comes to fishing with lures, you're going to want a lure clip on the end of your line or on the end of your leader, just to make life easier. When you're chopping and changing lures, sometimes I can go through pretty much every lure in the box. If I can see bass in front of me and they're not feeding on the particular lure that I'm chucking at them, I'll change to something else. This particular one, there's loads of variations on a theme of this particular lure clip. This one I think is made by Delalonde over in France. They all work on a very similar principle. It's a piece of wire that you clip to the end of the lure, spin it round, and your lure ends up trapped like that. It's not going to come off. Like I say, these clips work for 99% of your lures. They are a tiny little bit fiddly. It's, you know, that's spin it round to get it back off. Lots of people like to use these. In the last sort of 4 or 5 years, I've been using one of these little babies. Now, this link is made by Breakaway Tackle over here in the UK. It's called a mini link. It's just a smaller version of their fast link, which they developed for quick changing rigs for shore anglers. But these little beauties, they're tiny, as you can see, about the size of your little fingernail, and they are so quick to use. Okay, so here we go. Here's my Heddon Spook. That's it, it's on. And it's not going to come off. Now it's off. You saw how quick that was. On, off. Simple as that. Now the beauty of these is, when you want to fish a proper, true surface popper with a concave face, these traditional sort of rotation type links just don't work. There's not enough gap to get that piece of wire onto the nose wire of the lure. Not so with the Breakaway mini link. Like I say, just as with a normal lure, push it in, it's on. Really, really simple. And I've caught bass to 10 pounds on these little links. I've also caught cod and pollock to well over 20 pounds just using these little links. Super strong, and they cost pennies. So my advice, or one of my little secrets, is to get on these Breakaway mini links. They really are good.